1992, they come out with Dustin's opponent, Terrence Taylor, who was feuding, ironically, with the York Foundation when Michael Wallstreet was the top guy of that operation, with Alexandra York in 1990, facing off against each other starting in 90 in that year. Apparently, he has aligned himself, taking Michael Wallstreet's spot when he left, eventually go be an IRS and WWE later in that year. He becomes the head of the York Foundation in terms of talent of the talent pool that Alexandra York had. And if people don't remember Alexandra York was basically Marlena, Dustin Rhodes' ex-wife / even girlfriend at the time. Terry Runnels. Excuse me. And she basically poses as this yuppie from New York, corporate head who has devised a way to program computers to implement a game plan of sorts that can help her guy win a match. Any match can, and she has all the data down packed and right there on her laptop that can very, very distinctly illustrate to that wrestler how they can beat the opponent they're about to face. It's like a systematic way to evaluate a match of how your guy can go about it. It's like sabermetrics in wrestling. It was very revolutionary at the time. You know how you have sabermetrics in baseball, it's like sabermetrics in wrestling. Just absolutely weird. But she made you think at the time that she's using this computer, she's putting in the data. If there's any issues going on with the game plan, she's going to reconfigure the data at ringside, and obviously you're going to have a win for her guy. And actually, more times than not, her men actually won. I mean, Ricky Morton and Tommy Rich will eventually, the two guys who preceded this match, will eventually join the group. But that's neither here nor there. Dustin Rhodes is in this big feud with the York Foundation. He wins this match, and it was a very, very good competitive match. Dustin Rhodes had a lot of offense at the beginning, but Terrence Taylor implemented that game plan from the York Foundation and found a way to neutralize Dustin Rhodes until Dustin Rhodes withstood that game plan and won the match via Bulldog headlock. It was just really, really well done. And you had Dusty Rhodes, who was doing commentary with Ross, cheering them on, which really added to it as well. Really good stuff there. Dustin Rhodes is the winner. His first real big win in World Championship Wrestling. And following that, you had one of our squash matches that did not make the VHS in Big Josh versus Black Bart. Now, Black Bart is taking the place of Larry Zbyszko, who's injured at the moment and cannot attend the event and compete in the match. This really wasn't a great match, and quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of not necessarily Black Bart, but as a Big Josh character. To me, that sounded like another Dusty Rhodes, or really, I'm not going to put it on Dusty. It sounded like a Jim Hurt creation that really didn't go nowhere now. People who don't know, Matt Bourne was basically playing this role. He played the role of Doink the Clown in the WWE during 1993 all the way on, late 92 all the way on to the mid-90s, actually, right, 94, 95, when he was in the company. An infamous character that people know him of as Doink the Clown did not translate whatsoever. He did not translate the Big Josh character over to the Doink. Completely different characters. People probably didn't even know that. But the Big Josh character was basically a big, larger version of Grizzly Redwood. Now, Grizzly Redwood is a famous, real well-known wrestler that wrestled for Ring of Honor, Premier Wrestling Experience. He's a very, very talented wrestler, a member of the Great Outdoorsmen with the Scout, Man Scout Jake Manning in a lot of indie circles. This was basically Big Josh. He was a big lumberjack guy who looked like he could compete in the Bunkhouse Stampede back in the late 80s. But unfortunately for WCW, this isn't 1988. This is 1991. There was a difference, and this character just did not get over at all in WCW. They tried over and over to give him an opportunity to get over. He really wasn't a huge popular name. The wrestlers, the announcers, Jim Ross tried his best, just didn't work. But Black Bark loses the match. Black Bark, of course, people who know him, he was a prominent wrestler in Jim Crockett Promotions, and even reached the heights of being managed by James J. Dillon and winning the National Heavyweight Championship that year of 1985/86, somewhere around there. I think it's 85. Long story short, as I said, Big Josh wins the match. Really wasn't interesting at all, if you ask me. I'm going to finish up the first part of this review of SuperBrawl 91 with this match. And I think it deserves this to be the last thing I talk about in the first part, because it was at this point of the pay-per-view, the midpoint of the pay-per-view, and it was the match of the night at that point between Barry Windham and Flying Brian Pillman in an awesome taped fist match. Now, for those who don't know the taped fist match, you don't see it at all really in wrestling anymore. Two combatants have their fists taped. They can actually close their fists and use that as a weapon, as an offensive maneuver in the match as much as they please. It really was a brutal match. Now, for people who don't know the feud between Barry Windham and Flying Brian Pillman, Flying Brian and Barry Windham have been feuding all the way throughout 1991 at this point, which really, what we thought would culminate at Wrestle War 91 in Arizona in February of 91, but it really didn't. Instead, you had Brian Pillman almost lose his career because of an absolute mistake by Sid Vicious, powerbombing the crap out of him, and just botching that powerbomb. Almost broke his neck, his arm, shoulder. It didn't look right. So bad to the point that Ellie Gante, who was real good friends with Pillman, had to take him away. It was a really, and basically say, enough's enough, we're going to stop the match. And that was really one of the first War Games that the Horsemen actually won. The first one, actually, I can recall. But Barry Windham, what preceded that was Barry Windham and Flying Brian just added all throughout early 1991, to the point where Brian Pillman was severely injured by the Horsemen, which started with one War Games thing in 1991 between Sting Squad and you had Ric Flair's Four Horsemen. It continued after, even after Brian Pillman was perceived to suffer a really big injury because of the hands of Sid Vicious inadvertently at Wrestle War. It continued, and the physical, destruction of Flying Brian just continued by Barry Windham and the Horsemen, and Barry Windham eventually came back and got his job. Brian Pillman came back and got his blows in as well, and that culminated in this match that I'm going to discuss right now, the taped fist match. Brian Pillman came in as the underdog, and he was really the underdog throughout early '91 when he was feuding with the Horsemen. He was basically the Ricky Morton of 1991 that Ricky Morton was to the Horsemen in 1986. This young guy with a lot of talent. Obviously, he's destined for stardom. Got a lot of heart, but can he survive against the big boys? And he got his shots in on Barry Windham a lot in this match, but Barry Windham dominated 3/4 of this match. He beat the hell out of Brian Pillman with the taped fist. They used that little ramp way that WCW had at the time from the entranceway all the way into the ring, which was really, really cool at the time. I really liked it because they could do a lot of good stuff and bumps on it without fan interference. So it was really safer than many people may have suggested at the time, I thought. And Pillman got beat up on that ramp. He got beat up on the railing, and he got beat up inside the ring. But he had the courage, and Jim Ross, once again, tell you how great Jim Ross is and was on commentary in this pay-per-view, and also blending well with Dusty. They were able to explain why and how Brian Pillman had so much courage through his football reigns with Cincinnati, and it just made you believe that this guy, although I don't think he can pull it out, he still has a chance. So him and Barry engage in a lot of blows. He eventually comes back at Barry and beats the hell out of him, and they're both busted up as can be during the match. Good emphasis on the blood here. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was really well done in how it was presented and how it was played out. You had Brian Pillman. We think that Brian Pillman was going to, do a pretty cool move on top rope against Barry Windham. However, Barry Windham gives him a low blow and then it executes his infamous superplex and wins the match. And an awesome cradle move that, by the way, by rolling over on him, which it was executed really well. And after the match, he wins the match, of course, and then he continues to beat up on Pillman, and then he walks away. But this is not over, and I will explain that more towards the end of this review, how it's not over and how it just continued on until Brian Pillman eventually lost a loser-lead WCW match for like 90 days and resurfaces as the Yellow Dog later in 1991. But that's it for this first half portion of the review. I wanted to actually give some time for SuperBrawl 91 because it is one of my favorite. It was my favorite pay-per-view of 1991 in WCW. I think 91 WCW is excellent. And just keep in mind, prior to the short little break, this is Ric Flair's final pay-per-view match in WCW before going to the WWE, and I'll explain all of that very shortly as part 2 of Spec Reviews SuperBrawl 1991, May of 1991. We'll continue very shortly. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Spec Reviews Part 2 of my review of SuperBrawl 1991 World Championship Wrestling, occurring at the Bayfront Center in St. Petersburg, Florida. Now, I'm going to pick up where I left off. The first thing I would like to say is WCW they were in the position to debut several new talent in the business at this point. And there's 3 guys in particular that debuted on the show. The first is the Diamond Stud, debuted with his manager, of course, Diamond Dallas Page, part of the Diamond Exchange. And he was supposed to be Diamond Dallas's huge project. It really didn't pan out well for Scott Hall. I mean, I thought this character had legs. I just don't know why WCW really never went all the way through with it. Put him in good positions to do it because Page was a good talker. Scott Hall was a good talker, but he wasn't allowed to really say anything else. Another guy, Johnny B. Bad, aka Mark Mero, debuted on